Hey guys, it's Believe Gaga. You never know where your dreams will take you. As well, we don't know where Elliot is taking us and who is Mr. Robot. So, this is the 5th episode, if I'm right, because this is episode 1.4, yes. So this is the 5th episode, you know, just me rocking my Versace sunglasses. The jewelry of the day. Lady Gaga, again. But, okay, so this is episode 1.4, Exploits. It kind of goes off on a very different, I don't know if tangent is the right word compared to the last episode, because the last episode was kind of like, it seemed like this kind of weird trip, like, I guess, deeper inside Elliot's mind, almost, and it was, like, very confusing and stuff, like, the last half of the episode where, like, he goes to get, like, another hit of drugs and stuff, but then, like, it's not it, and then this episode is like, okay, let's just forget about this, and we're going on with, like, their plan, so it's kind of like, I guess, I felt like it skipped something, but at the same time, I don't know, like, with, maybe it was, like, a bad trip, and I did call it when I guess, tweeted about it or whatever. But, basically, let's recap the other episodes. So, they have this plan to hack the climate to heat up and destroy the tapes at Steel Mountain and everything. Shayla's twin, she's supposed to be meeting with the Dark Army, and who's supposed to be helping them, that Chinese hacker group, who also, we found out were the ones who hacked Angela's boyfriend. And then Angela infects Allsafe with the boyfriend's computer and stuff that the Chinese hackers told him to do and, like, upload the disk or whatever and everything like that. And there's going to be a copying and transport, and they have to speed the plan up because all those tapes and everything that I believe were part of Elliot's, like, I guess, weakness, which is his dad and the cancer stuff, they need to, like, I guess, get rid of the tapes and whatever like that. And then there's dinner with Tyrell and some hoe and stuff like that. And then Elliot is like, well, he's still happy where he is. You know, that comes up again. And then it talks about Vera and Shayla all over like that when, like, before, like, the episode starts. This is, like, the recap. And then it goes to the last episode where, like, he woke up from that, like, I guess, bad trip and stuff. And he was like, oh, I'm alone. I'm all alone and stuff. And, like, I guess, like, his loneliness and, like, I don't know, like, separation anxiety, social anxiety, he probably wasn't hugged enough as a child, you know, so that's probably why he has, like, all these social anxiety problems and whatnot. And then, of course, Mr. Robot's like, no, you're not alone, I'm not leaving you, kid, and blah, 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 like that. So I guess Mr. Robot's trying to, I guess, play with his mind and being that father figure that he never really had at the same time, or that he just, I guess, had problems with after that, like, cancer dilemma and everything like that. But let's get into this episode. Okay, so the episode, this one, 1.4 Exploits, it opens up with Iggy Azalea playing with a ball in jail. You know, she has her braids and stuff, or cornrow dread braid thingy, I don't know. She's, like, just throwing a ball at the wall and stuff. And Vera is kind of there, the guy who got arrested for, like, raping Shayla, like, date raping her and stuff like that. And he was that gangster that Elliot talked to. And he's meeting with, I'm supposing, is a lawyer or someone of his, and they're talking about, like, why he's there and, like, he could go away for years and stuff, because they have all his tweets and, like, Instagram and everything like that of his, like, drug runs and, like, his transactions and everything. And then his brother is there and stuff, and then he's like, oh, I thought this was supposed to, like, be safe and stuff. And then she's like, well, you know, having all your information out like that isn't, like, the definition of safe or whatever. And then the brother's like, we save so much money and blah blah blah, which was kind of a little odd because I'm like, I guess turn to digital instead of paper, you know, like recycling. That's what I'm getting. And then she's like, yeah, it was an anonymous tip, so, like, that's, like, how he got caught. But we all know that the tip was Elliot, because Elliot deleted Vera from, like, his life or Shayla's life for hurting Shayla and raping her and stuff, because Elliot has feelings for Shayla and stuff like that. So that's the reason why Fernando Vera is in jail. And then Vera's like, someone will get hurt, because that's how we get square with the universe and stuff, because, like, Vera's, like, very, like, I guess, he's a card reader, a palm reader, and stuff like that, because he's always like, the universe, and this, and that, and this happens for whatever reason, and blah, 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 like, he's very, like, I guess, spiritual in that sense. And he just says that, and he sees, like, the orange, like, pill bottle, almost, like, prescription bottle, in one of the pictures, and he kind of looks at it and stuff, and I guess that kind of, like, triggers in his mind that it's Elliot, and he's kind of like, okay, now I know, like, who, I guess, gave the tip away, you know. I guess he puts it together, like, well, that night it's like he did this, and maybe Elliot was infuriated, and that's the way how Elliot gets back at him. And then he's like, okay, he's like, I'm gonna hurt you, or that's you, you know, like that's you, like I'm out to get you, you know, like Taylor Swift, Katy Perry. Now we got bad blood. Excuse me. And then it goes into Bill Cosby, Jack Black, and Mr. Robot and Elliot at a cafe and stuff, and Mr. Robot gets up and he like bumps into someone and he's like, oh sorry, but like he scans the employee's like badge. Like if you've ever seen Identity Thief where she makes like a fake credit card with that guy's money and stuff like that, that's basically what he does, but like with the employee ID to like get into Steel Mountain basically. And he basically card scanned the employees so they could like I guess make one for Elliot to like get in, or just for them to like get into the fortress, which they do. And then he's like, everybody has like a vulnerability and stuff like that, and I feel like that's a foreshadowing into later on into this episode, because with this series there's like a lot of foreshadows and illusions and stuff like that, and like little pieces that you can kind of miss if you don't watch. Because like when I watched for the first time, I did not notice Vera looking at the pill bottle until I watched it the second time that I take my notes on the episode to recap it, that I noticed he looked at the pill bottle, and that's kind of like how he realized that it was Elliot in a way. But back to it, he's basically like, everybody has vulnerability and stuff like that, and then he's like, this impenetrable building, he's like, we just penetrated this building, you know, like, it's nothing is, like, indestructible, like, impenetrable and stuff like that, like, he's like, it's still built by people, so people can still get in, you know, like, there's always a flaw, which is, like, the whole part of this, like, I guess, theme for this episode, flaws, vulnerabilities, exploiting people and stuff like that, and it's just, like, I guess a lot of, like, mind manipulation and everything like that. So it's very interesting. It's a very like psychological episode, which there is a lot of dialogue in this episode, so there was a lot to write for this episode. And they need to meet with some guy named Bill and some person named Wendy, and they need to put that Raspberry Pi, I believe it was called, to the climate, and that'll like I guess succeed their plan in blowing up Steel Mountain that Mr. Robot told us about, like how he wants to blow up the place and everything like that for the tapes not to get sent out and stuff, because they had to move right away first off because they're going to be shipped away, but then like now that like it's getting closer and Elliot had like his little like mind trip or whatever, like they're kind of a little bit shorter-ish on time, but whatever. And then he talks about Jack Black being a glutton and Cosby being a know-it-all and Robot like being insane and stuff like that. And then he comes back and it goes to his own security flaws, Elliot's own security flaws, where he's like, I don't like being outside and I love morphine and stuff, and he's like, I'm talking to you, but you guys don't exist, and like, that's going back to the first episode, Hello Friend, because we, the audience, is and are the friend that Elliot made to talk to, like, he's narrating to us, like, talking to himself is talking to his friend, which, like I just said, is us watching the show, or the series, and then he's like, I'm talking to you and you don't even exist, and blah blah blah, and then he meets with Bill for a tour without an appointment, which they kind of didn't know and stuff. And then he's like, oh, I'm Sam Sepul and everything like that. And he's like, oh, we'll just reschedule. Like, you know, our supervisor, like, gets mad and gives me shit if I don't have, like, a scheduled appointment and everything like that. And he's like, look me up. And Jack Black had made, like, this wiki page with, like, saying that he was, like, a tech billionaire and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, he's like, you really should look me up. And he's like, no, I won't. And then Elliot's gonna walk away. He's like, no, I'm being too weird and stuff. Like, I guess his social anxiety kind of, like, starts creeping up a bit. And he's like, no, I'm gonna leave. And then Bill, like, looks him up on Wikipedia, and then he's like, oh, he's like, Mr. Sepul, he's like, good news, and then it cuts to commercial, but we know that means he's getting the tour, because when it comes back, we see Angela, she's coming home to her boyfriend, who's basically pleading with her, like, oh, don't break up with me, like, we can get married, and blah, 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 and then he's like, oh, you're gonna ruin your life, what are you gonna do, go live with your dad and stuff, which she kind of is, and that ruined life, I felt like that was, like, an allusion to, like, Elliot had a ruined life growing up, as I'm getting from his father, like, I guess, being mad at him for telling the secret that he said about him having the cancer and everything like that because he wanted to get him help, and then his mom kind of being not as physically abusive, but more, like, emotionally abusive, like, he always has flashbacks of, like, his mom, like, being, like, mean and, like, belittling him, which we see a little bit later on in this episode. So when Angela's boyfriend Ollie says that to Angela, it's kind of like ruined life, and then she's like, well, she's like, whatever, you know, she's like, tell Allsafe whatever, like, I used your computer and stuff like that, like, tell them whatever you want, but they won't believe you because, like she used his badge to get into the building, and like she used his computer to upload the virus and whatever, and it's like they're like, oh, it's you, so how can you say it's her? You know, like she was being really smart about it, you know, like the little hacker and whatever. So basically, like he used her, like oh, I love you and stuff like that, and like he was still meeting with that like hooker online or whatever. Like she basically turned the tables on him. It's like, well, I used you this time, and like, because it was all about him in the previous episode where he's like, you know, like this could ruin me, and she's like, that's it. And then he's like, oh, it could ruin you also, like us. But then like he's very, I guess, self-centered and egocentric like that. So she basically played him at his own game. And then it goes back to the tour with Bill. And Mr. Robot's like, we need to get rid of him and like destroy him and everything. And she's just, I mean, Robot's just like, get rid of Bill, you know, like just, like I said, destroy him, like bring him down a bit and everything like that. And he's just like, okay, well, first off, like, let's find out where like the files are and stuff. And he's like, oh, level 2 is where all the vaults are and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, read him, Elliot, like you have to get rid of him. And that's kind of Mr. Robot getting into his head again. Like, it's like, if there's anyone who knows what it feels like to be belittled, this is what I was talking about just now, anyone knows what it feels like to be belittled and like get, I guess, pushed to the ground, like literally and stuff like that, and like knows what it feels like to, I guess, be bullied in a way. He's like, it's you, like you're the best people reader and stuff. Like he's kind of like creeping his way into Elliot's mind, and Elliot's like, yeah, I kind of know. And then he's like, you know, for fear and everything like that. And then we see a flashback to him and his mom. Like his mom is like has him on the ground and stuff like that. And she's basically emotionally abusing him, and she's like, answer me, like, get up. And she's like, get up. And she's like trying to like force him off the floor and stuff like that. And then she's like, I hate you. She's like, you're worthless. And then like that like snaps because the music starts getting dramatic. And he tells Bill like basically what his mom told him. She's like, think about it. She's like, who would really love you if you died? Like, no one would. Like, no one cares about you. No one would ever care about you. And he's like, the only people obligated like to like show up at your funeral if you died would be like annoyed, and they'd like leave early as possible and stuff like that. He's like, who and what? He's like, you're nothing to any and everyone. Like he's like, it's the truth. And he's like, you know it. So he's like, find me someone who matters. He's like, because you don't. So like he's trying to like, I guess, like mind trip Bill. Ugh, you know me, I gotta move because my legs are falling asleep. He's like, find me someone who matters and stuff like that, because he's like, you don't and stuff. And then he says how he's like desperate and lonely enough to break. And I thought this was kind of like, I guess, is the saying the pot calling the kettle black, because Elliot is lonely and he's scared. And I'm pretty sure this was mentioned in one of the previous episodes where he has that breakdown when we first see him at the kitchen table with his mom, where he's like, oh, what do people do when people get this lonely? They reach out to family and friends. He's like, but I have no one. But yet he's scared of being alone, but he has that social anxiety, so he's a very, like, complicated case in a way. So it's very interesting to see how, like, I guess he can read people by finding similar characteristics in other people, so he knows how to play his own game, you know? Like, what hurts him, he knows hurts others. And we kind of see this again later on in the episode, because I felt like that was just, like, an allusion to Elliot being lonely himself, like I just said. And then somehow Trudy shows up, and then he asks about Wendy, and then she's like, who is Wendy? You know, I was thinking Wendy Williams because the lady was black, but not Wendy Williams. And then she's like, okay, I'll see you out and stuff, and then they need to improvise because, like, they don't know who Trudy is. They were expecting to see Wendy, and they had a plan with this Wendy lady. So he kind of whispers to himself, like, the elevator is almost here and stuff, like, to kind of, like, warn them because he has that little earpiece. And then she's just like, well, of course, that's how it works, boo, when you, like, press the elevator button and stuff. Little does she know he's talking to Mr. Robot and them. And then Jack Black is like, okay, like, people are all people, vulnerabilities and stuff, like, what would matter, you know, like, when it comes down to it and stuff like that. So, like, they send a text from, like, her husband's phone, Trudy's phone. And she's like, oh, I have to go and stuff. And she, like, goes and she reads the text, and what's his face, Bill Cosby's like, what did you send? And then one of the messages is like, I'm at the hospital and stuff, and it's what we always feared. And then she's just like, oh, like, I guess, like, somehow, like, they played with the fact of, like, age or whatever. They actually did find information, and maybe her husband was sick, I don't know, but, like, it seems to have really gotten her, so I guess there was like a problem and they just got a lucky shot, you know, like they say. But then he tries to go through the stairs and stuff, and then okay, this is when he's walking towards like the camera, of course. So like someone comes out of this door, and then another, like, I guess like two people come out of another door. But what I thought, which obviously it's confirmed like right after it comes back from commercial, um, he's walking like this, and the first person who walks out this door kind of looks over the shoulder, but not really. And I was like, is that Tyrell? You know, Tyrell, like the person with that pregnant, like, I guess Russian wife hoe or whatever. And I was like, is that Tyrell? You know, because I was just like, okay, that's weird. And then he breaks into the staircase and stuff. He's like, oh, like, this isn't the staircase. Cosby tells him, because he's like, you're on the opposite side of the building, and there's no, like, parking garage that should be leading up to those stairs and everything like that. So then he goes like back out the door that he just came into, and lo and behold, he runs into Tyrell. And Tyrell's like, Elliot, he's like, why are you here, basically, you know? But then it's like, is this part of a bigger plan? Did Tyrell know he was gonna go there? Like, when he first hacked Tyrell, and he's like, oh, like, he's like, did he know I was gonna hack him, and he like destroys his computer and stuff? It's like, this is what I said, and this is like still my theory. It's like, is, I guess, Elliot just like a pawn in this game? Like, is Mr. Robot just using him, and is Tyrell just using him? Is Evil Corp just using him? Is Allstate just using him because they know like he has like all these social anxiety problems and stuff like that? And I know like the Who is Mr. Robot Twitter and stuff is like, we're always watching and stuff. So kind of, it's like, did they kind of know Elliot was gonna have these problems, or did they like kind of see him as, I guess, a potential key, like in the previous episode, to like a big plan to like use something to their advantage and stuff? Like, did they watch him growing up and see how smart he was in school or whatever, and then they're like, okay, well, Elliot's like a valuable asset to anyone's plan, like they say. But maybe he's caught in between like three different companies, and like it's just lucky him that he ended up in Allsafe, and now it's like Evil Corp or Mr. Robot. Could they be the same person? Could Tyrell be good? Could Mr. Robot be bad? I mean, it's very like, whoa, when you try to think about it. So then Shayla, that stupid hoe, she's working at like some chicken wing place and stuff, and then they're like, oh, what would you do before? And she's like, oh, pharmaceutical sales. And then she's like, oh, why'd you stop? And then she's like, oh, she's like, Obamacare. Thanks, Obama. Now Shayla has to work at a restaurant. And then Elliot's watching the Steel Mountain promo, and they're like, oh, it's like safe for all your data needs. It's a big fortress and stuff. And like, it's like, I guess, ironic because he had just mentioned how Steel Mountain is like impenetrable, but hello, like, he and Mr. Robot got in, but then it's like, did Tyrell know that that was gonna happen? You know, like, is Elliot a pawn in this game or something? Are they being played all together? Like, what's going on here? So it's very interesting, like, this episode, like, when you try to piece things together, and I guess you really have to pay attention to the episodes, and I guess, like, little Easter eggs, like they say in video games, to kind of, like, I guess, realize what's truly happening, or try to get a sense of what's happening, like, low-key behind the scenes, you know? So, that happens, and then Tyrell's talking with some men, and then I think he mentions, like, they funded ISIS or something, and then he's like, oh yeah, don't stare at them too long. And then he's kind of like, oh, he's like, does Tyrell know, like, did he know I was in the show and stuff? And then he just answers Tyrell's question of why are you here, and he's like, oh, he's like a routine Allsafe check and stuff, and then Tyrell's like, well, why are you? That's not like an engineer's job. And he's like, oh, like, it's like we're overlapping, like, shortage and whatever, you know, so he's like, okay, and then he's like, well, I guess Tyrell tells him, he's like, I guess we both wanted to work off-site today, and that was kind of a little odd, because it's like working off-site. Is Tyrell working off-site? Don't really know Tyrell's motives, besides the only thing we've seen him is have, like, that encounter with that, front desk guy, and then with his Russian hoe wife, they were doing that 50 Shades of Grey thing, and when he met Elliot for the first time, and then this is, like, kind of the other time that we're meeting him. So we don't really know much of Tyrell, just as much, or at least I don't really, like, find Tyrell's plan, besides maybe he's playing everyone. And then he kind of has to find Tyrell's flaw, because Mr. Robot's like, oh, he's like some rich bratty kid, you know, like he's like an arrogant prick and he wants you to know that, and he actually wants to be accepted by you, who he like takes your opinion to heart, like they say. So when he asked him to lunch and stuff, Elliot was like, here, like this is where you eat, like he tries to like belittle like the cafeteria for the place, and then he's like, what is he doing? And then Kazu's like, no, he's being smart, because when they look at the floor plan, it's like, if you're such like a big rich executive person, like Donald Trump, let's say, he's like, why are you eating here? Like, this isn't for someone with money, you know. It's like seeing Donald Trump eating at a Luby's, like that just does not make sense. So then they go to the executive lounge and everything like that, and that's like his exploit flaw and stuff like that. But Tyrell really, like, I guess, cares what people thinks and how ostentatious he is. And then Tyrell tells him, oh, it's like Allsafe is finished, but we won't let it die. And I thought that was weird, because it's like low-key, Allsafe is finished now that Angela put the virus from the Dark Army in there, but at the same time, like, it won't die. Why? Probably because they have Elliot working for them still, and even Tyrell mentioned how he wanted to get rid of Allsafe in a previous episode, and it's kind of weird, because I feel as long as Elliot is there at Allsafe will still be standing, because we saw in like the first episode that Allsafe had that security breach and stuff like that, but Elliot solved it. And who did it? The Dark Army people, I'm supposing. And then it's like, Elliot's like smarter than he looks and stuff like that, and then even his boss Gideon was like, oh, like, how, like, did you do this? Like, congratulations, like, you saved the company and stuff. But then it's like, little do they know, Angela just infected the whole system all over again and everything like that, and it's just a big problem after big problem. Like, it is getting crazy up in here. But he's like, we're both the same, we're both perfectionists and stuff. And then it's kind of like, perfectionist, it's like, kind of low-key, I guess. And then he starts criticizing the waiter, and he's like, oh, he only makes $30,000 a year, like he's probably owes a lot of money and child support, he's probably like divorced and everything, he owns a car that he still owes payments on. Did I just say that? And he's just criticizing the waiter, and he's like, oh, he's just a cockroach who just, his greatest pleasure is serving me a salad. So he's kind of like belittling the waiter, which is kind of like, we just saw Elliot being belittled by his mother in that flashback, and then he belittles Bill, and it's kind of like it just came back to bite him in the sense of like, he sees the way he's talking about the waiter, and then Tyrell's like, oh, I can never see myself living like that, you know, like an old, I guess, no, not old, like an ordinary man, you know, like that. Like, he can't see himself, like, not living, like, any other lifestyle but the one he's living right now. And then security shows up, which is kind of weird, because I guess they have him sign the receipt for his lunch or something like that. Like, I really don't know why security shows up. It's just odd, but Elliot, of course, gets uncomfortable with that. And then Elliot's like, oh, I need to go up to the bathroom. And then he throws up. So he's like the Olsen twins, you know, throwing up in the bathroom and stuff. Like Paris Hilton, like, I want to be a size 0. Ugh. So he throws up in the bathroom. And then he kind of just, I don't know, he kind of, I guess, thinks that Tyrell's toying with him. And he's like, am I Tyrell's malware, you know? Like, what does Tyrell want out of Elliot? Because is it a chance meeting that he met Tyrell, or is this part of a bigger plan, like they say? Like, it's very, I guess, odd that Tyrell and he would be in the same place at the same time, you know? And then, given the fact that Elliot's there with Mr. Robot and stuff to make, like, some huge plan, it's kind of like, is the two of them coincidence that they just were in the same place at the same time? Or, like I said, are the stars aligning, like Vera says? I mean, what is going on here? So that's weird. And then he's like, okay, he tries to mess with like the little climate thing again, because he sees it like when he's in the bathroom, like I guess like the storeroom or whatever, and he like tries to mess with it and whatever. Like, he's playing with the wires, trying to insert the Raspberry Pi, you know, so they can heat up like Steel Mountain and blow it up and make it hot enough so that the tapes melt. But Tyrell shows up, and it's kind of weird, because like every time Tyrell shows up, or like in this episode at least, or from what I'm getting from Tyrell, like he's kind of like a sexual deviant. That's kind of what I'm getting, you know, like he's very like shady in that sense. So I'm just like, Tyrell, like, because he just starts peeing while Elliot's there, which, I mean, any public bathroom, like, people will be peeing, like, if you're just standing there. But it was just kind of odd the way, like, I guess the way he's carrying himself or the way he's presenting himself in this episode, like, it was still, like, a bit, like, okay, how, like, this is just weird. Like, it was kind of awkward, I guess, in a way, and this happens again in another scene. Not with Elliot, but, you know, like, that same awkward, like, I guess, bathroom scene, but, I mean, it's just weird. It's creepy, you know? Like, I just get, like, some weird creepy vibe from Tyrell, which is kind of odd. But Tyrell tells Elliot, he's like, I know you framed Colby and stuff, and then he's just like, I'm not here to turn you in and everything. He's just like, and then he brings up his dad, and he's like, that's public information, so, like, anybody would know, you know? It's like, we all know your dad worked at Evil Corp and stuff like that. And then he's like, I don't care. He's just like, I just need to know your weakness and stuff. And he's like, I think I found it. And he's like, it's probably revenge. And Elliot's just like, how in the hell does this bitch know? Like they say. And then Tyrell's like, everyone's human and stuff, and every human has, like, I guess, a flaw, like they say, like, exploits and stuff like that. You know, this is what the whole episode is revolving around. And then he's like, but I'm not human and stuff. And then we kind of saw that when he was talking to himself in the mirror, where he's trying to become the CTO before he meets with that desk guy, and he's just, like, slapping himself in the mirror. He's like, don't be such a robot, like, be human and stuff. Like, this is your job, like, you worked for this. So it's kind of like, it's just odd, you know, like, it's just weird, like, the choice of words and everything like this, like I said, and the way everything's being presented, like, it's kind of just coming back, like I said, it's like a web, and everything comes back to the center somehow, and I feel like Elliot's just caught in the middle of everything, you know, like, he's, like, stuck in the web still, like, he can, like, get off, but then he, like, gets back on the web, so it's very weird. And then he's just like, okay, he's just like, enjoy your long drive home. He's like, I have a helicopter flying me out, so that goes to show, like, his ostentatious, I guess, lifestyle, because he's like, well, enjoy your long drive home, you know, I have a helicopter taking me home, so that's the least of my worry, like, I'll have a better ride home. But then it's weird, because it's like, how does he know Ellie got cut off once again, but left off with Tyrell, like, flying on the helicopter and stuff, and then it's weird, because it's like, how does he know Elliot's leaving home that same day, you know, like, even though it's like a routine check, maybe Elliot would be staying there another day for a routine check from Allsafe, but it's just, I guess, odd. That's why I said, is Tyrell really, like, in on this? Like, is Tyrell conspiring with the Dark Army against Mr. Robot? Do they already know Mr. Robot's plan? Because, like, the way he just, like, knows that he's going home that night is kind of like, how'd you know, you know? But I guess that's something, like, you kind of, like, I guess, skip over if you don't really pay attention. So, I mean, it's just, it's weird, but it's an interesting show nonetheless. And he's just like, take care, and he puts his hands on his shoulders, and it's like awkward, like, I guess, pause. And I felt like this is what he wanted to do when he first met Elliot, where he's like, I want you here with me. But, like, when he says take care, I feel like he kind of, like, looks at him like something that he wants to sexually conquer, you know? Like, it's just, I don't know, like, Tyrell's kind of, like, I feel like sexually twisted or something, you know? Like, that's just what I'm getting from his character, that creepy vibe. And then he's just like, okay. And then he just finishes the Raspberry Pi Elliot. He puts the thing in the climate control and stuff like that, so they can set up, like, when to, like, make the climate hot enough and explode the place, like they say. And then we go to Shayla's twin communicating with the Dark Army in a laptop and stuff. And it's just like, she misinterpreted something because I forgot what they put, but I think they said it was an old Chinese saying. It's like, it takes 100 years to build something or whatever. And then she's just like, what? She's like, we can do it right now. And they're like, no, you misunderstood and everything. So they kick her out from, like, that little chat that they have and stuff. And then she tries to get back in, but it's like, deny, deny, deny. Like, you've been kicked, basically. And then she's like, oh, she's like, I'm gonna go talk to them. And then Malala's like, she's like, don't push them and stuff like that. Like, you really shouldn't meet with them again and everything. And then Shayla's like, well, it's like, fix it or break it. Like, their call, you know, like, Shayla's like, I'm just gonna do whatever. Like, it's their call and stuff, but, like, I'm gonna do what I gotta do, because, like, she doesn't want to fail, I guess, the team. Because the Steel Mountain thing is kind of like their plan for their revolution. So what is the revolution? Why is Tyrell there at Steel Mountain? The world may never know. But it's just very odd, like, that happens. And then we go to Angela at her dad's house, and then she's like, yeah, I broke up and stuff. And then the dad's like, yeah, I was on the phone with Ollie, he was crying and stuff. And he's like, baby, come back. To Angela, but of course Angela's probably not gonna come back, you know? So that's just, it's another thing. And then the dad, like, we find out, like, he didn't like Ollie and stuff. And she's like, oh yeah, he cheated on me and stuff. And the dad's like, oh, I'm not surprised and everything like that. And then the dad wants to help her out financially because she's like, oh yeah, I was like, oh, just money problems and stuff like that, blah blah blah. Before she said like he cheated on me, but we all know like it was more than just cheating. It was like the hacking and stuff like that. So who knows when the dad's gonna find that out? And then like he's like, okay, I'll make you French toast, and I feel like that was kind of like a little, I guess, allusion to Elliot being a kid, because it's like, oh well, Angela kind of came from this, I guess, blessed childhood where she has her dad, even though she lost her mother to cancer, and then Elliot had his mother, but she wasn't loving, and the dad was, but then the dad was like betrayed by Elliot when he like went to get help for him because of the leukemia. So it's kind of weird how, I guess, polar opposites, where it's like loving parent on one side and like, I guess, abusive parent on the other, but it's like one has the mom, one has the dad, and it's kind of like opposite roles. Like you would kind of assume the daughter with a father would have an abusive father, and like the son with a mom would kind of have a very loving mother, and maybe the boy, like the son, would be like very, I guess, abusive to himself, like drugs and stuff like that. But it was totally opposite, like they say. So that happens, and then Tyrell and his hoe are talking in like the limousine in whatever language they're talking and stuff, and then like, oh, we're gonna be late and blah blah blah, and then she's like, oh, I don't know what they want and everything, and then he's like, look, they don't want anything, no one is as miserable as you. And I was like, ooh, Tyrell, burn, just don't talk to a hoe like that. And then she's like, well, she's like, no matter what, she's like, they will always want something. She's like, take what they have and stuff. And it's just, I guess, like a very weird exchange between them, because it's like, who is she? And like, it's kind of like, I guess he is evil in his own way, but then she's there to like reinforce the evil in Tyrell or something like that. So it's kind of odd, you know, like it's just, maybe she's Tyrell's daemon, like they say, like in the previous episode. Maybe she is Tyrell's daemon or whatever. So then it goes back to Shayla's twin meeting with that guy, that the one who hacked Ollie with the Dark Army people, and then she's like, why is China backing out? Like, why didn't they come through and stuff? Like, we did our part, like, why aren't they doing theirs and stuff? And then he's like, basically, like, walk away from it and everything, and then she finally tells him, like, they're out before you guys even made the, like, Steel Mountain, like, plan and stuff. So he's like, y'all basically did this for nothing and everything like that. And then I was like, okay, is this part of a plan? Because I said, everything, it's like, it was all for nothing, but I said, the fact that she met with the Dark Army, and then Tyrell shows up, but the Dark Army was out before Steel Mountain, so that's why I said, are they being, like, played with? Because it's like, do they know Elliot's, like, the key to this situation, like they said in the previous episode? Like, they know Elliot is alone, in a way, so it's like, do they play him in the sense of the Dark Army is like, okay, let's just go along with Mr. Robot's plan, like they say, you know? Like, did they know they had Elliot that was going to go into Steel Mountain? Did they contact Tyrell? Did Tyrell contact the Dark Army? Like, is there something, like, happening between these people? And then the Dark Army just played along just to get, like, I guess, a chance meeting with Elliot and Tyrell in the Steel Mountain place, you know? Like, is this just one big, like, fiasco that we just aren't in on? Like they say. But that's what I thought about that. And then it goes to the dinner scene with Tyrell and his hoe with some other, like, I guess, the CTO people. Or the guy who's going to become the CTO, and then they're talking in English, which is weird because, like, the lady, Tyrell's hoe, just talks in some random language. So you're like, she's talking English? Like they say. And then when he asks, well, he nods to, like, his hoe, Tyrell. And then she starts talking to the wife of, like, furniture and stuff, you know, like, girl things, you know. And then he asked the CTO, like, oh, about the job. And then he's like, oh, I'm suspicious. Like, only 4 people know, like, about my messages. Like, how would you be, like, the 5th person to know? And then it's kind of weird. It's like 4 people, then 5th. And then Tyrell's like, well, I want to be your right-hand man. So it's like, ooh, like, are they playing with fingers now, like they say? And then he's like, well, if you were me, would you trust you? And he's like, well, I never would have let me into your house. So he's like, Tyrell's kind of like, trying to, like, brain game him, I guess. And it goes back to them driving back, and then Shayla's hoe ass just has to call Elliot, you know, it's just, everyone can call Rami Malek except me, so Rami Malek, hit me up if you ever see it. And then while her hoe ass is calling him from the new job and everything like that, and blah blah blah, and he's like, oh yeah, I did what I had to do and stuff, and then she's like, oh, she's like, why? I wish you would come over and tell me about it. I'm like, bitch, where? Rami Malek needs to come over to my house and we need to get things done. So, Shayla's being a little hoe with my man, like they say. So then it goes to, like, back to, like, the people that Tyrell's having dinner with, but they're talking about wine and stuff, and, like, his Russian hoe bride is, like, acting dumb. She's like, oh, like, every wine is, like, the same to me, and I'm just so cheap, and blah, 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 you know? And then, it's funny, because she's, like, pregnant and stuff, and then he's like, oh, it's okay to smell, like, the wine and stuff. Like, smell it, like, I'll teach you about wine, like they say. And then Tyrell asks the CTO's wife, like, he's like, honestly, like, how do you not blow your brains out married to, like, this man and stuff? And she's like, okay, I'm gonna just take that as a joke in poor taste, you know? And then she goes to the bathroom and stuff, and then it's funny because, okay, so that hoe is pregnant, right? And then when Tyrell's leaving, when they look at each other, when the guy goes to, like, show Tyrell's, like, hoe Russian wife something, he's like, drink the wine, and then she drinks the wine, but she's, like, pregnant. You're like, oh, bitch, that baby's gonna be born messed the fuck up, you know? Maybe, like, Elliot. But that baby, whew, that poor baby. The baby's gonna be like, haha, thanks to my mom, I was born a little drunk, you know? Fetal alcohol syndrome, you guys. It's not a joke. But anyways, that happens. And then it's weird because she has to go pee and stuff, and then Tyrell walks in on the CTO's wife peeing, and it's weird because, like, he's just standing in front of her, and I thought, like, she was, like, he was gonna, like, be like, suck my dick or something, you know, because that's what I was getting from the way he was just standing there. And then it's kind of weird, like, the way she just moves back and kind of opens her legs slightly. I was like, oh, is this gonna be another sex scene? Like, what is going on up in here? But no, he's just like, oh, I want to thank you for, like, a lovely dinner, which was just odd. And then he leaves, and she's just like, huh. So I guess Sex and the City just is her favorite show, and that didn't happen for her, like I said. And then we return to the arcade, and then Shayla's like, oh, no, Shayla's twin. She tells Mr. Robot, she's like, oh, we can deliver the payload and stuff, and blah, blah, blah. And then Mr. Robot's like, okay, why don't we? Like, I don't hear cheering. Like, if this is what we wanted, like, why aren't you cheering, ho? She's like, okay, well, the Dark Army left, and, like, this is not happening and everything. And then Shayla's hoe ass is calling again. And then she's like, let's do it now. And then he's like, no, it'll be a waste. And he's like, we don't want to hurt them. We want to kill them. Then she's like, we have to do it. And then he's like, if we do, he's like, they'll have better security next time. Like, it won't be as easy. They probably won't be able to do it. And everything like that. And then he's like, the revolution will fail and stuff. And then he's like, if you let you do it, and, like, if we let you do it, it's like, so don't do it. And then she's telling Elliot, she's like, just tell me it's okay to execute the plan. She's like, we're so close and everything. And then Elliot's like, okay, it's not over. Like, we'll figure it out and everything like that. And he's just like, it just won't happen tonight. And I can't read what I said. I don't know, I guess, like, that was her flaw. I really don't know what I wrote here. But then he's like, oh, we can stay at my place. I'm just like, well, Rami Malek, everyone can stay at your place but me. You know, all those hoes. And then he starts talking about the beach with his dad and how he dumped some sand on his floor and everything like that. And the mom was mad, but his dad wasn't. And then he says, like, that his dad had told him that, like, all these, like, the earth shifting, like, tectonic plates and stuff are getting scientific. Brought all that sand there to make a beach and everything. And he's just like, how many times would it take for me to, like, I guess, bring a shoe full of sand to, like, my place, like they say, until, like, there's no beach left over. And he basically kind of uses that as a metaphor to, like, changing the world. He's like, how many times, like I said, taking a shoe full of sand, but, like, how many times would it take to actually change the world? Not just change the world. He's like, because we don't have enough lifetimes for anyone like that. He's like, but for it to mean something for anyone and to mean anything. And then he's like, it's slow, it's methodical, it's exhausting and everything like that. Like, he's like, you really can't just change the world in one lifetime. It's like, it's a huge, like, I guess, deal, kind of like they're planning, like, it involves so many people, but then what is this plan happening and who's involved, like they say. So I don't know, he kind of uses a metaphor, like, about changing the world, because, I mean, he wants to change the world, Elliot. But then it's like, is he really going to change the world with, like, Steel Mountain? Is he really going to change the world with Evil Corp or Allsafe? Like, is he really going to change the world to actually mean something, that revenge of his father, like, avenging his father, you know? Like, is that ever going to happen? And then Angela's finding some, like, past due stuff, like, a bunch of, I guess, money problems or whatever and everything like that. And then she goes and she's like, oh, yeah, Dad, I'm going to go on a run and everything like that. And he's like, oh, okay. And then you go back to, like, Shayla's apartment in a way, But then Elliot's apartment door is like broken in again. And then there's like a phone call from Vera's brother. Well, from Vera. And then he's just like, oh, he's like, the universe aligned perfectly and stuff. So I'm assuming, because like the dog is still there, when he mentioned walking in, like, oh, Shayla's on dog duty and like the dog doesn't poop all over her bed sheets. He's basically like, oh, well, Shayla should be home, you know, with the dog and everything. But then like Vera calls him. So we can just, I guess, infer from that somehow Vera from beyond the grave, like they say, has probably his brother go out to get Shayla because he figured out that it was Elliot who put him in jail, and he's like, well, how else can I hurt Elliot? Shayla, since he knows he likes Shayla. And then it goes back to Angela, and she stops at the end of the road on like her little run or her jog, and there's like two paths to choose from, and that's where the episode ends. Like she just stops and she's like, bitch is out of breath. Like if I was running, like, bitch, I can't even go up the damn stairs without even being out of breath. So she's like running and stuff, and she stops at the end of the road, and then there's like two paths to choose from. She just like looks, and then, like I said, the episode just ends. So I mean, this kind of goes back to, I guess, the 1 and 0's episode. Like, is she gonna choose yes? Is she gonna choose no? Like, what did she choose when she chose to infect Allsafe with her boyfriend's stuff? Like, this show is just all about choices and chance meetings and the universe aligning and stuff. Like, it's just very weird and very cray-cray, but we'll have to wait until next Wednesday to, I guess, find out more and find out how these pieces are coming together. And I am so pissed off because I deleted the Damon's episode because I had, like, the series set to record, and I thought I had recorded it again because I have the first episode recorded twice, or episode 1.1 twice. One of the first 2 episodes I have it recorded twice, so I deleted it. And then I was like, oh, I recorded Damon's again. Because, you know, sometimes they show the episodes, like, throughout the week until next Wednesday. Like, they'll just show the episodes randomly on USA. So I was like, oh, don't tell me I just recorded, like, the same episode again, like Damon's. And then I deleted it. Little to know that was the episode there was only one copy of that episode, like they said. So I don't have Damon's on my DVR anymore. So I'm kind of annoyed by that. Because I'm like, no, that was a good episode. Like, it was so trippy and stuff. And I felt like that's where you got a lot of, like, I guess, stuff that's happening in Elliot's head, but I don't know. It's an interesting episode. Like I said, this series is very, like, whoa, you know, like, it's very, like, I don't know, it's very mind game. Like, I felt like it's M. Night Shyamalan's with a twist. But, I mean, I don't know, but I guess that'll be the end of this recap for episode 5. This was 1 point, I just finished recapping and I don't even know. My memory is going, like I said. This was episode 1.4 exploits. So, yeah, episode 5 recap, 1.4 exploits. So, I guess Rami Malek, call me, hit me up or something, Rami. But yeah, until next time, guys, I want to say hi to Rami Malek, and I'll come back with a review or something. Obviously, you never know what you're going to get with me, like you never know what you're going to get with Elliot. And I feel like this video is pretty long, but this video did have a lot of dialogue and kind of like storyline and background, like story, like weird Fandango kind of stuff like that. So this was a pretty long, like, dialogue-y episode. It kind of dragged a bit, but I don't know, it was kind of a little weird. So like I said, hi to Rami Malek, if he ever sees this, and I'll come back with something. You never know what you're going to get. Like I just said, always repetitive, am I? But yeah, bye guys. Stay safe and God bless. You too, Rami.